What's up, guys? Matt with Richardson Performance. Welcome to my channel. Just went in on a volleyball video that was explaining what to do preseason and in-season for volleyball players specifically. And now I'm going to go in on how to train in-season for athletes. So if you are an athlete, tune in. If you are a parent of an athlete, tune in. If you are a coach, tune in. We're going to talk all about in-season training, how the weight room should be utilized for your athletes, and just generally speaking, my thoughts on that. So get your notebooks out. We're about to go in. Classes in session. First off, we have to keep in mind, what is our sport? That's the first question you have to ask of yourself. What is our sport and what is it demanding of my athletes? So, for example, my thinking when I was younger, and you know, my parents around me too were like, hey, you know, so I was undersized growing up, and so my freshman year of high school, I'd always really liked to play football, but we weren't very good, and so I kind of thought, like, should I go out being undersized like I am? Risk probably just getting beat up, and we're not gonna, you know, have a very productive year, right? And I decided to keep myself busy and just kind of, you know, train to be tough, because no one likes to run distances. I really did it just for a mental benefit, and I'm glad I did. But my freshman year of high school, I ran cross country. And my thought process there was, oh, yeah, I'm going to run cross, and then I'm going to come in phenomenal shape for basketball. Wrong. The conditioning is completely dependent on what the conditions of your sport are. Conditioning is completely dependent on the conditions or the demands of your sport specifically. Basketball is going to demand some sprints of me. It's going to demand me to be able to cut. It's going to demand me to be able to hold a defensive position, and I'm cutting repetitively, a lot of jumping. My body honestly was detrained for basketball by doing cross country. My lungs were not used to the intensity of it because it's more choppy bursts. My joints especially were not conditioned to having so much force in the direction change like we had in cross country. Cross country was so much more low impact and forgiving than basketball. So that's kind of the example I'm going to use of how you could go wrong. In the volleyball video that I just dropped, I talked about how I see a lot of coaches, especially in the preseason, try to just get their girls to be tired or their guys to be tired by running them a lot. And they're doing laps and stairs and this and that. And literally you are making your kids less athletic. Would any coach on this planet or any parent, any athlete say, yeah, to start the volleyball season, my goal is to drop my vert by about 2.5 inches? No way. Absolutely not, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's common sense. But that's what you're doing by the demands that you're placing on your athletes. We adapt to stimulus. Our body adapts to stimulus. Just the same way you spend time in the sun, you get a little bit tan or you get red, some of you. That's what's going to happen to your body depending on the training stimulation that you give it. So, my number one pet peeve, let's get into it here. Number one, what is our sport and what are the demands? That's what we want to write out, right? So volleyball, we're going to have a lot of reactiveness where we're moving laterally. We have to react moving side to side, a little bit of forward and back and whatnot. You need to be able to jump high, so we need to be able to be explosive, and we got to be able to handle all that impact, right? Basketball, for instance, we're going to have a lot of cutting. And to where we need to really condition our feet and ankles and then our knees to be able to handle all that. Football, for instance, is where we need to put on, I don't want to say more bulk per se, but you need to do bodybuilding with, everyone just thinks big, big, big. And I'm going to tell you right now, you want to be as big as you possibly can for your natural frame. But big does not mean athletic. Big does not mean hitting hard per se. I mean, like weight, you know, you might have a 12-pound brick and you drop it, but it's going to hit a lot harder if you can throw it, right? So that's where we got to have speed. And the problem is when we start just going, wait, let's get big, kind of going off on a football tangent here. But if we just think get big, that's where your injuries are happening, because you're carrying too much weight, and you're probably not putting that on in a lean manner if you're doing it fast. And it's hindering your athleticism. So you might be getting bigger, but you're not getting more athletic. You're not hitting harder, and you're putting yourself at risk for more injury. That's why everyone's blowing knees out. These things should be measured. I mean, like, measure your test your 40 times. You want to be getting more athletic, right? I mean, you can measure it just like anything else. So that being said, the number one problem that people make, or that coaches make, kids as well, is they train really hard preseason, and they're at their strongest and most athletic before the season, and then they stop all of that and they finish the season, your regional, your state, your big tournaments where it counts, the playoffs, at your weakest. It makes no sense. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you guys, generally speaking, how I would go about avoiding that and actually doing the exact opposite. So the problem is that when we get in season, we're gaming a lot, right? And we're practicing a lot. So I honestly think that we're practicing too much. And by practicing too much, I just mean we're doing the same things too much. You want to keep that hunger for your sport, right? We need to be watching film. We need to be doing, first and foremost, you got to be doing skill work for your, that's the number one priority, is your actual sport, playing it. Number 2 is going to be skill work. Number 3 is going to be our weight room, right? Which that's going to enhance our athleticism, and it's going to keep us, everyone just thinks the weight room is getting stronger. The weight room is where you add armor to your body, and athletes need as much armor as possible. The weight room is not just horsepower, it's adding armor to your body, to your knees, to your shoulders, to your back. And how you move in the weight room is how you will move on the court or the field, period. If you think that that's up for discussion, you just don't know. I don't know how else to say it. You just don't know. So when we have all this extra time, the key is that we need to trim the fat. So what do we need to do for our sport specifically? So if you're playing volleyball or basketball, it's going to be knees and ankles. And that's going to be pretty much every sport, but especially those sports we have knees and ankles. We need to be bending them deep. We need to be squatting. We need to be lunging to get some structural integrity. So if you're just doing like heavy weight, I kind of fall into this trap a lot. I love to do my cluster sets for like my back squatting, right? I do deep back squatting. I work my clusters. I'm hungry for the next 2 days afterwards. I'm kind of a little bit grumpy sometimes because it's such a tough training stimulation, but I get crazy vert gains from it. I jump off 2 feet much higher as I'm increasing that. That being said, I got to make sure that I add in some bodybuilding. You know, if I do 2 weeks of heavy squat, I got to take a week off and do some more bodybuilding where I'm working structural integrity. Otherwise, I'm just kind of, I want you to think of when you're doing heavy weight and whatnot, you want to be moving with good form, of course, but even then, you know, when it's a little bit of a struggle, it's like you're really driving your car and you're like trying to keep it in between the lines, and your brain neurologically doesn't like that. So when you combine that for too many weeks or too many reps, whatever, if you will, with the unpredictability of your sport and just the stress and breakdown of it, that's when injuries happen. You just kind of, it all kind of works up to where we get the scale out of balance here a little bit. So the weight room, by adding armor, is balancing the destruction that we're getting. So the weight room is construction, and our sport is destruction. We got to maintain a balance between those two in season, but we have to keep time in mind, of course, so we need to trim the fat. What I would say is pick one movement. So if you're trying to jump higher, run faster, to me that would be a deep squat, boom, bar none. One movement to get strong in and maintain the strength, or slightly increase it little by little, slowly throughout the season. once every 10 days is fine in season. That's plenty for your strength work. And then some bodybuilding work you're going to want once a week where you're working your legs to keep them healthy. We're working our ankles, so we're doing some calf raises. We're doing some single leg stands, calf raise holds, lunge holds, high rep Bulgarian split squats, things like that to keep ourselves healthy. So we want to build, and by high rep I mean 8 to 20. It doesn't have to be crazy. Two sets or so. We're trying to do the minimum here that we need to get by, right? Minimum investment, maximum return. That's what in season is about, right? And we got to pick what are the investments accounts that we want to grow. We want to get stronger. We want to keep our horsepower up, but we also know our health drives our performance. So we got to stay healthy here, and we got to blend that in. And where I would blend that in is after practice. The practice that is right after your game. So whether that's like if you're getting in, your guys in the weight room and your girls in the weight room on Saturday or Sunday, or like if you have Friday, Saturday games and you're getting in on Monday, I would suggest doing your lifting after practice on that Monday. They're beat up and tired from the game, and then what else? So you're going to kind of ease into practice that way, right? Something repetitive with some skill work, going to get them into a flow. You work on whatever technical stuff that they need to do, let them play a little bit of ball, and then get them in the weight room. That's what I would do. I would get them in the weight room early on in the week, and then they have as much time as possible to recover for game day, right? That's what I would do. As far as upper body work goes for any sport, I love, we got to keep in mind with upper body, it's going to have a performance enhancement. Honestly, when I was in high school, all I did is really have time to lift upper body. I was running and jumping and sprinting so much that I didn't really have, I couldn't really hit a crazy leg day like I do now, because I didn't know how to do it like I'm explaining to you, to where you're timing it right and not getting sore. Or having like delayed onset soreness or just fatigue from it. Does that make sense? And so I just know now that the small amount that you have to do, and if you just kind of really narrow your aim, you're going to be golden. We got to make sure with upper body we keep in mind the effect it's going to have on your psyche. It's just going to make you more confident. Everyone's going to feel good when you do that, and so I think it's as simple as looking no farther than like an incline dumbbell bench press, or maybe a barbell bench press. I'd say for most athletes that are not going to train all that often, to be honest, or not going to be super seasoned, get them in a dumbbell bench press, work some chin-ups or assisted chin-ups, and some dips, push-ups, the basics, throwing a little bit of core with that. You're done. Something to keep the rib cage down, to compress the ribs and just kind of keep a good balance, especially for throwing athletes. That's huge. So let's check what else I got on my list here. Let's see. The bodybuilding is structure, so that's what we have to understand. It's structure, right? When we're building our race car, of course, so we're looking at horsepower, we're looking at acceleration, we want performance. That's what our deep squatting is going to do. That's what playing our sport is going to do when we're running and jumping, and adding in some plyometrics to that, some sprint work, some plate hops, jumping rope, that sort of stuff is all going to make our race car get out of the hole, and it's going to make it have a good top speed. By top speed, we're talking jump high. By get out of the hole, we're talking we got good reactive strength, so we can cut, right? We can turn the corners. But that being said, when we're putting all that stress, and we're putting more stress down the drive chain through the chassis, we got to make sure that we body build a little bit. So we're talking high rep walk lunges, Bulgarians, things like that, to build structure that essentially upgrades your nuts and bolts and makes everything bigger and stronger to handle all that new power. So in all reality, you only really need to train like 2 days a week, I would say, during the season. It's going to be good to break this up. I promise you, you do not need to spend all your time on the court or the field. You don't. You absolutely don't. All you're going to do is burn your kids out. If you have the same thing every night for dinner, even if it's your favorite food, I used this analogy in my last video on volleyball. If you have pizza every single night, pizza is your favorite food, you're still going to get sick of it. Most people are going to get sick of that. And so even if volleyball or basketball, football is just your one true love, or your athlete's one true love, and you're going to have people that or kids that like one sport more than the other, but you want to keep that hunger for it and enjoyment for it. One of the coolest things, and we'll leave off on this, is my senior year we won a state championship in the fall, and I had this my old track coach. He's the most winningest coach in our state's history for high school track, and essentially kind of what he told me was that, hey, you know, you've proved yourself to me. I know that I can, if I give you some freedom, that is how you do best. So leading up to state track, he just told me the last 2 weeks of practice, he said, you know, I'd like you to be here for your teammates and whatnot, as far as what you want to do and everything. I can see that you get burned out doing this too much. I know you don't like to run. I know you like to compete, though. So do what you need to do to win us a state championship when we head to state. And I practiced short and intense. Some practices I didn't come to a couple of them, and I just kind of knew, for me, I had to take myself away from that a little bit because we were practicing so often. And then I felt that over about that week period, that craving. It wasn't that I didn't do anything. I knew how to keep my body primed and ready, but I didn't do it to where it was too mentally taxing, to where I wasn't wanting to do that sport. And then when I got up on the line that Saturday, I was hungry for it. And that made a huge difference, having that in my psyche, to where I wanted to do it. So you want to make sure that you keep that hunger, because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean it needs to be fun. I was, oh yeah, sports should be fun, but it should be competitive. You should want to win, but you should enjoy showing up to work every day. This is when, yeah, your job should be fun to some degree. Even if you don't love the sport, you should look forward to coming in there and getting better. And a lot of that is cultivated by the culture that the coach creates. And I hope that this advice that I just gave you here today can help you to better your athletes physically and mentally. And I hope that it educated you to have maybe just a little bit different perspective on what we think of traditionally as far as coaching and structuring practices in season and preseason, of course. So I hope that helps, guys. That is my rant and 2 cents on training in season. Ask yourself what your sport's demands are. Trim the fat. You only need to train a couple days a week, and just pick some relative strength exercises, some incline dumbbell bench, some chin-ups. Incline dumbbell bench would be the only absolute strength work that we do. Some dips. You can kind of change things up there. Just make that fun. Your body wants to do some things to feel good like that. Like I said, it's really good. We can't discount the effect that sort of stuff has on our psyche, which will then translate onto the court or onto the field. And then keeping in mind that the weight room adds armor to us and our health drives our performance. It's not just about performance, and we do not want to start, for the love of God, we do not want to start the season at our strongest and then finish at our weakest. This stuff needs to be in your programming, right? Take the time to think about it and structure it. And if you don't know how to do this, call a professional. Now with RPT, out.